There's a version of you sitting 6 months from now. Same face, same name, maybe even the same bad mornings. But depending on what you do today, that version is either living a life you'd barely recognize, or still lying in bed scrolling, wondering when things are going to change. Here's the uncomfortable part. The distance between those two people isn't motivation. It isn't discipline. It isn't some dramatic turning point where you finally get serious. It's something so small you've probably never once thought about it on purpose. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what that thing is, and why almost everyone gets it backwards. Let's be honest about something first. You've probably tried to change before. New Year's, a Monday, some 2 a.m. moment of clarity where you swore this time would be different. And for a few days, it was. And then it wasn't. That's not a character flaw. That's not you being lazy or not disciplined enough. That's what happens when you're using the wrong system, because most people are taught to chase goals, when what actually changes a life is something quieter than that. This comes from a book called Atomic Habits, by James Clear. And I want to be upfront, this isn't going to be a dry, here are the main points summary. I want to actually walk you through why this book rewired how I think about change, and by the end, give you the exact mental model to use it yourself. Because there's a number I want stuck in your head for this entire video, 1%. Not 1% as in not much, 1% as in, this is the whole game. Stick around, because that number is going to make a lot more sense in about 90 seconds. The math nobody tells you. Picture a plane taking off in New York, headed for LA. Right before takeoff, someone nudges the nose just 3 degrees off course. Barely anything. You wouldn't even notice it happening. But keep that plane flying in a straight line for a few thousand miles, and it doesn't land in Los Angeles. It lands closer to Tijuana. 3 degrees. That's the whole difference between two completely different destinations. Your life works exactly like that plane. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you a little. Get 1% better every single day, and by the end of a year, you're not 365% better. You're roughly 38 times better than where you started. Compounding does that. Get 1% worse every day, a few too many skipped mornings, a bit more scrolling, a little more self-talk you wouldn't say to a friend, and by the end of that same year, you're close to zero. Same starting point. Same amount of small, wildly different destination. And that's the trap. We're taught to believe change requires some huge, dramatic action. A total life overhaul. A 5 cold shower, read 50 books kind of transformation. So when we don't feel that kind of intensity, we assume nothing's working, and we quit. But that's not how it happens. It happens in the boring, invisible middle. The valley nobody warns you about. Here's what we expect progress to look like: a straight line, going up, effort in, results out, nice and linear. Here's what it actually looks like: flat, 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 still flat, and then, almost out of nowhere, a curve that shoots upward. James Clear calls that flat stretch the valley of disappointment. And it's brutal, because you're doing everything right and it looks like nothing is happening. This is where almost everyone gives up. Not because the system failed, but because the payoff was still a few weeks away and they couldn't see it yet. If you've ever put in real effort and felt like you had nothing to show for it, that's not proof you're failing. That might be proof you're exactly on schedule. So if effort alone isn't the answer, what is? Stop chasing goals. Build a system. Here's a claim that sounds wrong the first time you hear it: forget the goal. Think about it for a second. Winners and losers in almost any field usually have the exact same goal. Everyone training for a marathon wants to finish it. Everyone starting a business wants it to succeed. The goal was never what separated them. And even when you hit the goal, then what? You run the marathon, and a week later you're back on the couch, because the goal gave you a finish line, not a way of living. That's the real shift this book makes. Goals are good for pointing you in a direction. But it's the system, the daily, repeatable process, that actually gets you there and keeps you there. And the deepest version of that system isn't even about what you do. It's about who you decide you are. The goal isn't run a marathon. It's become a runner. The goal isn't read more books. It's become a reader. Because once something becomes part of how you see yourself, you stop needing motivation to do it. You just do it. That's who you are now. The loop running your life right now. Every habit you have, good or bad, runs on the same 4-step loop, whether you've noticed it or not. A cue. Something triggers you. Your phone buzzes. A craving. You want something. You want to know who texted. A response. You act. You pick up the phone. A reward. You get something. The itch is scratched. That's it. That loop, repeated enough times, becomes automatic. Which is exactly why your mind going blank at work somehow turns into 20 minutes lost on your phone before you even realize what happened. Once you can actually see that loop, you can start pulling levers on it. And this book gives you 4 of them. For laws that decide whether a habit sticks, or a bad one finally loses its grip. Let's go through all 4. Law 1, make it obvious. You can't fix a habit you don't even notice you have. So the first move is awareness. Writing down what you actually do all day, without judging it yet. Just observing. Most people never do this. They try to change behavior they've never actually looked at honestly. Once you see it clearly, the next step is getting specific. I'll read more that doesn't work, it's too vague to act on. But I will read for 15 minutes at 6 a.m. in the kitchen, that's a real instruction your brain can follow. You can make it even stronger by attaching it to something you already do without thinking. After I pour my coffee, I'll read 1 page. The existing habit becomes the trigger for the new one. And then there's your environment, which, honestly, might matter more than your willpower ever will. Want to drink more water? Put bottles where you'll actually see them. Want to stop wasting time on your phone? Put it in another room. You're not relying on discipline in the moment, you're removing the moment entirely. Law 2, make it attractive. Here's something most people get wrong about motivation. It's not the reward that pulls you toward a habit. It's the anticipation of it. Dopamine doesn't spike when you win, it spikes right before, in the anticipation. Gamblers get their dopamine hit right before the bet is placed, not after they see the result. Which is exactly why apps, junk food, and endless feeds are built the way they are. They're not selling the reward, they're selling the craving. So if we want a habit to stick, we need to make it feel like something we're craving, not something we're forcing. One way to do that, pair something you need to do with something you actually want to do. Only let yourself watch your favorite show while you're on the treadmill. Suddenly the workout isn't the whole task anymore, it's the price of admission to something you were already looking forward to. And the language you use with yourself matters more than you'd think. I have to work out feels like a chore. I get to build a stronger body feels like a privilege. Same action. Completely different pull. Law 3, make it easy. Forget the idea that habits take exactly 21 days, or 66, or any fixed number. It was never really about time. It's about repetition, how many times your brain runs that loop, not how many days have passed on a calendar. And the single biggest factor in whether you repeat something? Friction. How much effort it takes to start. If your gym bag's already packed and sitting by the door, you're far more likely to use it than if it's buried in a closet. Reduce the friction on good habits, and increase it on the bad ones. Leave your phone charging in another room, delete the app instead of just closing it. And if you only take one tactic from this entire video, take this one, the 2-minute rule. Whatever habit you're building, shrink it down to something that takes less than 2 minutes. Not read for an hour, read 1 page. Not run 5 miles, put your shoes on and step outside. It sounds almost too small to matter. That's the point. You're not trying to win the day in one shot. You're trying to show up long enough for the habit to take root. Motivation, weirdly, tends to show up after you've already started, not before. Law 4, make it satisfying. This last one is arguably the most important because it decides whether you do the habit again tomorrow. Here's the mismatch that quietly ruins most people's progress. Bad habits feel good immediately and cost you later. Good habits feel a little uncomfortable immediately and pay off later. Your brain, left on autopilot, will always chase the thing that feels good right now. So you have to manufacture some immediate satisfaction into the good habits, even something as simple as physically crossing a day off a calendar. It sounds almost silly. It works anyway, because your brain registers that small visuals win as a reward in the moment, not just some benefit 6 months down the line. And there's one rule to protect all of this: never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit, just the wrong one. On the days you don't feel like showing up for 2 minutes still counts. It keeps the identity alive, even when the intensity doesn't. Remember that plane, 3 degrees off course? That's what all 4 of these laws are really doing. None of them are dramatic. None of them look like much on any single day. But stacked together, repeated daily, they're the difference between landing in Los Angeles or somewhere you never meant to go. That 1% we talked about at the start? This is what it actually looks like in practice. Not a single moment of willpower. 100 tiny, almost boring decisions, repeated until they're no longer decisions at all, just who you are. If any part of this hit home, the book itself goes even deeper than what we covered here: more stories, more research, more of the why behind all of this. And if you want to see how these exact ideas play out day to day, that's exactly what we're getting into next, so stick around for that. I'll see you in the next one.